Welcome back live. Ladies and gentlemen, it's round 2 of the Mythicist Milwaukee show today. I'm your host, Rob Moore, the Deacon of Doubt. Sitting in with me today is producer Sean Frasek. What's going on today, Sean?
Not much. Excited to have Thomas on the show.
As always, we are keeping the all-seeing eye of Horus on the secular movement. And engineer Jason Lawson, big fan of today's guest, is also sitting in. Say hi quickly, Jason.
Hello.
There he is.
Simple.
It's a snowy day here in Milwaukee as we embark on the second hour, and we welcome a very special guest. He's Thomas Smith, host of several podcasts. I can barely keep it straight here. He's Atheistically Speaking. I read aesthetically. It's Atheistically Speaking. What else?
Thomas in the Bible.
Thomas in the Bible, thank you. And there's 5 or 6 more, right?
Yeah.
Comedy Shoeshine.
Comedy Shoeshine. Yeah. That's a great one. Welcome, Thomas.
There's one called Serial. Yeah, I did Serial as well.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah.
How's Adnan?
Good job on that one.
Yeah. Let you know a little secret. Adnan's guilty. He told me. I'm glad you brought some hype men for me. I'm glad you brought someone who's a fan of the show. I usually hire my own, hype men to come on appearances with me and really talk up my stuff. But thank you for finding a fan. That's good.
Yeah,
I will take payment.
It wasn't that hard, but unfortunately, it wasn't going to be me because I'm one of those guys, maybe more like you, who'd rather hear himself speak than actually listen to other podcasts. So,
that is a very unfair representation of me, but okay. I don't listen to any of my shows.
No, I don't either. That's the thing. I just hear myself live, and that's I get scolded for.
Yeah, that's enough for me.
Not listening to shit. So. Tell us about Thomas Smith, and first of all, was John not available for your parents? They couldn't think of a fancier moniker for you there than.
No kidding. No
kidding. Did you come over on the Mayflower? I got a bunch of.
I am ungoogleable. You can't even. It's a superpower actually in this day and age.
Is that right?
I'm like an invisible man. Yeah, it's like I can't Google.
Yeah, I thought mine was common. Rob Moore is pretty common enough to get me on an airport list because there's 1,000 people who might be a criminal named that. Do you have that problem when you go to fly?
No, actually, I haven't had that. So maybe the Thomas Smiths are keeping it, more clean. We're keeping it. We're not as many. We're not the criminal element like the Rob Moores you see.
It's right. It's a sentence. Rob Moore. It's a verb and an adjective. So
that's funny. That's funny.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, a verb and an adverb, I guess. But
it's like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego villain or something?
Right. Are you in fact a WASP, or did you come up differently religiously?
I'm not even sure. Actually, I have some sort of Christianity that I don't. Just a loose something. So yeah, I don't know. Is that a specific? I'm not really even sure what specific denomination we were. I went to a church, not Catholic, I guess.
Well, that's what I mean. It sounds like a typical, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant name.
Sure,
it could have been any kind of old Protestant when the family first landed in New England with a name like that.
True.
So you don't know. You were raised secular, basically.
No. I was raised to go to church. I had to go to church until I was. The deal was, and I've heard this from a lot of people, but my mom wanted us to go to church until we were in high school, and so as soon as I got to high school, I stopped going to church mainly because it's boring. It's the most boring thing for a kid that there could possibly be. It's amazing. See, I didn't even have the entertaining aspect of like hellfire or death to the gays or anything like that. Like I didn't have an exciting church where it'd be like, okay, there's some entertainment value. It was just a bunch of old people
and droning on,
just kind of old people getting ready to die and just thinking, let's all talk about God before we die. I mean, they're the nicest people. But they're all 100. And they're just kind of getting ready to die and talking about God before they die.
Yeah, I agree. And David Silverman says the same thing about church. It's just the worst thing for kids and the most boring thing in the world. And I guess it was probably second for me. I think.
I have a specific random memory of when, for some reason, I think I had a friend over that weekend or something, and so this friend had to come to church with me, and I specifically remember him sitting in the church during the sermon, literally like. In pain almost, with his head like leaned against the pew in front of us, like he's just was like, that we're just trying to stay awake, but you can't, and you're just so bored. Yeah, I specifically remember, I was really young, but I'll never forget, he was just like, oh my God. Could not handle it. It was so boring.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember standing in line with your mom at the bank. That doesn't happen anymore, but that was more boring than church. At least your friends were in church, and you could socialize.
Yeah, it's funny how when you're little, time is just so much longer.
Oh.
Like when I'm an adult, I'll wait an hour for crap all the time, and just like, oh, that was an hour that I had to wait for on hold or something.
It's true,
I remember
isn't it?
as a kid that it's a death sentence.
Yes.
It's like half your life.
Eternity, yeah. You pitch yourself
Yeah.
on the floor. Yeah, I have little kids, and that's where they're at.
Well, I think one of the awesome things that Thomas has done, and I kind of want to get into this a little bit. I know we love talking about church as a little kid, Rob, but I kind of want to get into this a little bit. Thomas and the Bible. Now, this is, I think our listeners would definitely appreciate this. This was a task that Thomas started in 2010. The goal initially was a year where he was going to read the Bible, verse line by line, back to front. It's 2016, and he just got into Acts. So 6 years later. So, Thomas, tell us about this a little bit. Why did you start this? I think it's a great idea. I've been listening to a lot. Helps me out. But what was the thought behind this?
Sure. Yeah, as you can tell, I missed the target by a little bit there. I was not quite a year. Yeah. Okay. So what happened was I'd been getting more and more into atheism. I'd always been just not a believer. Kind of like everyone, a lot of people you hear, it's like I just realized I didn't believe in it. I never believed in it. I always thought God is a cool thing that I would want to be true. Like I want there to be a heaven or a cool place where we go after we die, and it's like, oh, hey, I remember when we were down on Earth, like for some reason. But I just never really thought it was true. But I always was one of those atheists that kind of defended beliefs, defended religious people and said, it's good for some things, and they have it's kind of a good way to be more right than everyone. I think that's kind of an appeal.
Sure.
It's
I
like
think Rob can relate to them.
because you can tell the religious people that your beliefs are silly for this and this reason, but and then when an atheist is like, oh, they ought to stop believing in God, you can be like, well, hold on, man, there's some good so it's a good way to be smarter than everybody. But I grew out of that, and now I'm just smarter than religious people. No, I started reading, the typical stuff, the typical horse people. Read a lot of horse people books like Dawkins and Harris and all them, and so I was getting into it, and I thought, I've never read the Bible. I remember tiny bits and pieces as a kid in church, but I'm just gonna read it, see what's there, see what's happening there. I really didn't know what to expect, and then I thought. It was 2010. Podcasts were still kind of up and coming. They weren't as prevalent as they are now. I don't know if you know this. Literally every person has a podcast. Nearly. It actually might be up to 1.3 podcasts per person.
We're finding that out. We're finding that out.
Yeah.
And you're doing your part with 7. So
it's true. I'm really trying to push the average. But so I just decided, if I'm going to read this anyway, I might as well read it on recording, and I really didn't know what to expect. I'll try to make a joke here or there or an observation, and I thought if people want to listen to it, they will. And it started really slow. It's funny to think back in the day when I had 20 people listening for the first couple, probably a month or something. It's amazing to even conceive of that because that's so few nowadays relative to the audiences podcasts get, but yeah, it just kept going, and like you alluded to, I did want it to be. I modeled it after a religious podcast I saw where a guy was reading. It was like a daily audio Bible for a year, so it was 260 episodes because that's like a business day, 5 days a week for 52 weeks. So I thought, oh, I'll do that, and then I think I got through 1 or 2 weeks of that, and I was like, this is insane. I can't do this. The amount of Bible reading I had to do every day to make that happen was just not going to work, because there's things called life and jobs that I had to do. So that quickly that stopped.
So going to my favorite of the Thomas and the Bible episodes, have you built your own Ark of the Covenant yet? I know you know exactly how to do it.
Yeah, it's not for lack of information, that's for sure. That was pretty mind-blowing. I have to say that was the biggest surprise of the Bible. I honestly did not expect this. It's the worst piece of garbage ever written. It's the boringest It's so boring.
It's a struggle.
And it's not. It would be one thing if it's like, I don't know, maybe like Rush Limbaugh, where it's like, well, everything he's saying I think is pretty dumb, but I understand that he's good at broadcasting. Like he's good at, there's a reason he has an audience. He does little things to make people think he knows what he's talking about. It'd be one thing if the Bible were that. It's like, well, I disagree with the conclusions here, but I understand. And that's something you hear even from atheists. Oh, it's a great piece of poetry. It's you should read it for the literature. No, it's not.
Right.
I'm here to dispel that myth. It's the worst piece of garbage ever put to paper. Yeah. I would rather read those stupid vampire books than the Bible. There's just pages and pages of the same thing over and over again.
And where they don't agree too, yeah.
Yeah, guess what? And people always say, "Oh yeah, the begats." It's like, no, that was like a page. That's fine. I was totally cool with the genealogies. I was like, oh, I'll just skip this little bit. No, that's not it. There's these little stories of, guess what? The Jews, they're going to keep rejecting God over and over again. God, by the way, in this book, I don't know if you know this, in this book, God exists. Like, God is real in this book. If we go with the premise of this little book that they made, God is talking to them. Like, he's there. He's like, hey, guys, come on. Can you just
hanging out in the garden, right?
No. I mean, like, after all that.
Oh, okay.
And the Jews are that's okay. Sorry, I keep branching off. The other thing people who haven't read the Bible think is that the Old Testament is like Genesis. They're like, oh yeah, Old Testament, Adam and Eve. That's like 4 pages. I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. All that Adam and Eve, Noah, the snake, all the good Bible humor you've heard, like from Eddie Izzard and Ricky Gervais, all that crap happens in like a page and a half in Genesis.
Yeah, even Noah.
And then,
that's
what's
as far
that?
as
even Noah. It took me time to go
Yeah,
back and figure that Noah's like right there in the beginning, and then it's all onto the crap.
Exactly.
It's all onto just boring
Ruth
the
and
same
Judges
story of the Jews doing shit wrong over and over. Like God says, like, hey guys, come on, please, just all I want is a good meal every day. All God wants is like, he wants 3 square meals a day and some. He wants to be like your girlfriend. He wants to be the only one. Yeah, exactly. He's like, just don't worship. And here's the thing. He's real in this book. So, like, all he's telling these people is just worship me, the one real God. And they can't do it.
Yeah.
They can't. The Jews are like, but I just saw a statue. If you ask me, that statue looked really worshipable. Like, I know there's no actual God attached to that statue, but I think I'm going to do that. Sorry, I know you're all powerful. God will just have struck like 40 of them dead with lightning, and minutes later they'll be like, nah, I think I'm going to worship that statue. I can't resist. I'm sorry. I'm a sucker for statues.
It's easier than following over 600 commandments, though. I mean, that's part of it too, I think.
But it makes you wonder why they were the chosen people. You think he could have chosen the people who would have listened better.
Yeah, that's another thing I've said over and over. I don't know who chose these people or why. Like, why would a God have a chosen people? So stupid. So much of this is completely out of the gates is just mind-blowingly stupid.
Well,
he would not.
No, go ahead.
He created all of us, right? He created the whole planet, everything. Like, there's a lot of Asians that aren't mentioned in this book. There's some Native Americans that he never gets to.
Right.
And he just chooses one guy. He's like, nah, these are the chosen people. And this is not a choice that's without consequence, by the way. This is pretty consequential. His chosen people are allowed to, like, just kill other people, and they can take whatever land they want, and they could do, like, it's a pretty good benefit. So I would really be curious as to how he, arrived at that decision. What was the choosing process? Like, you guys can do whatever you want, and everybody else is kind of subject to your whims.
Right. Well, I think for those that haven't listened to the podcast, not only does he read it verbatim, but he also has brilliant commentary, and I think that's definitely the most interesting piece for me. Just when you start breaking it down, I loved how you're in Genesis where you're talking about how before God flooded the world for Noah, how everyone was evil all the time. I think that's just great. Yeah, it's something you don't think about. It's like, these people and the babies, it's brought up a lot, but just constantly evil. Like, you have to think about that when you go through the book.
Yeah, that's been now 6 years since I did those. I don't remember a lot of those, but yeah, I do remember that. Like, everybody, and it even says, like, they not only were they evil, they were thinking of evil the whole time. they're just like, oh, how can I be more evil? They're like on the way to the bank. Oh, look, how can I evilly be on the way to the bank? I don't know. Maybe I beat somebody up. I don't know. It's like everybody had to be killed. I'm sure that was the optimum solution.
Well, what is some of the feedback that you're getting from this podcast, if any? From the atheists?
shockingly good. I really don't even know what is going on because, frankly, I can't imagine listening to it myself. But but I guess there were enough people. I think I got lucky in that I picked something that apparently people wanted to listen to, which is not a religious person read the Bible, And I think my bare bones goal is this will be an audiobook. The bare bones goal is at least you have a guy with a not a very good voice reading the Bible to you. So that's at a minimum. Everything after that, I'm hoping is kind of icing on the cake. Maybe you'll laugh at my jokes, or maybe you'll find my insight interesting. And maybe that's what's done it, because I've gotten a ton of good feedback. It's got a ton of listeners. There's so much of it. There's so many episodes that I don't know how many listeners are like current. Every once in a while I'll ask how many listeners have been with me from the very beginning, and I think there's at least like 5, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but to have started 6 years ago when I started and still be listening every week. Because I changed it a year or two ago. I changed it to a weekly show consistently.
Well, here we're still looking for our 5th listener. So if you know anybody.
There's 30 people in the room, and none of them are listening.
Right.
Any plans for a Joseph in the Qur'an or a Book of Mormon after that?
Absolutely. I'm planning on moving on to another book after I'm done. I had to start Atheistically Speaking because I found this was, say, 2 years ago, I was having all these opinions on stuff, and it didn't really make sense to talk about it in my Bible podcast, especially because I figure with a Bible podcast, people will be listening to that for however long it's up. They're 10 years from now, someone will think, oh, there's someone reading the Bible, maybe I'll check this out. So it didn't really make sense to have like current, thoughts and all that. So I started Atheistically Speaking, which has really taken off lately. It's interviews, it's commentary, it's interviews, it's just general atheist stuff. But that one tends to be, I highly recommend it if anyone like me is kind of tired of the same old talking points, it's more about like meta atheism issues, like the rift between, different atheist groups, it's stuff like that. I try to make it so that it's more exploring things from all sides. Occasionally I'll have religious people on and debate with them a little bit, but it's not going to be your typical soundbite kind of basic atheist stuff. So I highly recommend that one if people don't want to listen to the boring Bible, which I don't know why you would.
I think you hit on it perfectly, and we want to do something a little special for the audience today, and we're going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick? I just want to kind of fanboy out a little bit with Atheistically Speaking. That's my favorite podcast that you do.
Thanks.
And he's the engineer of ours.
Don't slander me like that. I'm trying. But, from my perspective, that's the one. I mean, what you do better than I think anybody else is really represent the other side of the argument in a favorable way. I think that's one of the most important things. And as we get into what we're going to get into here with this next segment, that doesn't always happen in every segment of our movement. I think you're very fair. You do a good job of not ridiculing and not strawmanning people's beliefs. You try to say, what is their actual belief? What would they say they believe in? And let's take that argument and deal with it, and not let me make up some version that I think they say that's easy to break down. So good job with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. That means a ton. That's exactly what I am trying to do. I hope that other people see it that way as well. I never want to fall victim to straw manning the other side, because it's too easy. I mean, I think, unfortunately, just with all humans, and it's true in every group. It's true in religious groups, atheist groups, Democrats, Republicans, whatever the group is. It's so easy to just listen to people in order to feel like you're part of that identity and to band together and just misrepresent the other side. It's not really about the issues or the arguments. It's about how can you just feel like you're right together.
It's identity politics, basically.
Yeah. It is. That's a problem everywhere. I think it's more of a problem with religion. I'll say that I think atheists are more skeptical and more individual, but if you do a show, you guys do a show, you'll start to see with comments and interactions, like, people don't take well to disagreeing with them. Like, a lot of people just don't like it. They want to feel like they agree with you on every single thing. And if you question any aspect of atheism or an atheist leader or anything like that, a lot of people don't react to it well, and it's a problem even in atheism. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that compliment. That's totally what I want to do, and that's my goal.
Oh, you're welcome. And if it weren't for god-awful movies, I might give it number one. But,
yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
Well, one of the things is, we're kind of outsiders. We started this about 3 years ago, and we know you've been doing this for a long time, so we're going to pick your brain a little bit on this. But when you come in to the atheist movement or activism, whatever you want to call it, you kind of look at it like we look at religion. It's like, oh, religion, they're all together and they all share the same views and beliefs and things like that, So someone might come to atheists and say, okay, I'm an atheist. But then when you start getting into the activism side, or if you start listening to the podcast, you start figuring out, like, within atheism, there's all these, like, subgroups and key terms and things like that. So Brian's going to really be upset he missed this, because he's, like, totally up on all of this stuff, and he's such a nerd when it comes to this stuff. But so for the listener, what we're going to do today is we're going to throw some terms at you, and we're going to try and figure out what does it mean, because as you get more into this, you're going to start hearing these terms. And B, like, how did it start, and, like, who's involved and things like that.
Oh, there's no guarantee I'm going to know this, but
yeah,
okay.
If you don't know, pass. That's fine.
Okay.
Just go ahead and pass.
I will do my best.
All right, here we go. So we're going to start with atheism plus. Okay, again, when you come into atheism, you think, okay, atheism. And then someone throws a term at you called atheism plus. What the heck is atheism plus?
Yeah, I will definitely caveat that I'm not an expert on atheism plus. I think maybe when it started, it might have been a little before I was paying attention, because for the first 4 years of doing T and the B, I didn't really pay attention to the movement all that much. It was when I did Atheistically Speaking that I really started paying attention. But from what I can tell, atheism plus, there were some people. I'm trying to think of who I know. I'm pretty sure Matt Dillahunty supports it. I think Free Thought Blogs probably
Richard Carrier, PZ Myers.
Yeah, PZ Myers. Yeah, people just thought, the atheism movement as it is kind of broken and sexist, and there are examples of, now there's countless examples of Dawkins tweets that people really don't like, and a lot of that stuff. And so, and I think also the philosophy behind it was, atheism is simply a lack of belief in God. So therefore, let's start a group that's atheism plus all these other things that we like, which, I honestly don't have a problem with if people want to do that. I think it's a little hard when you start to try to agree on what those are, and that's obviously going to fracture. The more you try to drill down on, okay, what are the values that it takes to be part of atheism plus, the more you drill down on that, obviously, the more you're going to alienate certain people who maybe don't agree with those things. But if they want to have a group within a group, it works for me. I don't think it's ever going to be the new face of atheism or anything. I don't think it'll take over, because I don't know. I haven't heard much about it lately. I don't know about you guys, but it kind of died down.
I think so, and it sounds like you and I have a similar experience. When I first came into it, I'm like, what is this Atheist Plus? And you'd see it here and there, and it's
right.
Like, am I missing something? Should I get on board with this?
Right.
Or what? Isn't it just another source of confusion? We already have rationalists and secularists and humanists,
right,
and agnostics, and people who are scared to call themselves atheists. Isn't Atheism Plus just a minus?
Isn't it just, that's catchy?
Yeah,
that's a good campaign slogan if you're going to run against them in an election or something. I don't. Well, me being me, I'm trying to see it from their angle. I get it, and if people want to start a black atheist club, or they want to start whatever it is, a Republican atheist, they can start that group. I've got no problem with that. And if if they want to represent their interests that way, or they want to more specifically identify, works for me. But I just, like I said, I don't think it's going to take over it's not going to sweep the nation or anything. I do have a lot of sympathy for some of their beliefs. I probably not every single one of them. And again, the part where I see a problem is it does become an identity thing, and it does become a us versus them thing, and
right.
And the lines get blurred as to what's actually sexism and what's not, and it's tough.
Okay, second one. Social justice warrior.
I just learned somewhat recently. I didn't even realize that was supposed to be disparaging.
Okay.
So that's actually an insult. I didn't realize it was created as an insult because it's like the Big Bang Theory, which was originally coined by a religious person to kind of make fun of the theory. Something sometimes you don't realize. It's sort of like that, where I just was calling people like, "Oh yeah, you're a social justice warrior," thinking like that was the
Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Like, I don't understand.
It's apparently a disparaging term for someone who's very concerned with social justice. So it's a bit of a mocking term.
Seems like an oxymoron to me.
Yeah, I think some people have taken it on. Like, I think some people are cool with calling themselves that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many. I think others. It's so tough because someone will hear me say SJW or social justice warrior, and right away they'll already identify with the other side as though I'm insulting a group by even calling them that, when really I just didn't know that they weren't supposed to be called that.
Right.
And some of them are cool with it. So like there's so much vitriol in this division. That's probably the key division right now that I'm certainly focusing on lately is social justice people, I guess, and people who call those people regressive leftists. Sorry if that's another one of your terms.
That's actually the next one.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, that's a good transition then. It's like we practiced this or something. Good job, guys. Rehearsal really paid off.
1 point.
Yeah, that one is really bothering me lately because it's a term coined by Majid Nawaz to describe people who are so, I guess, left-wing and so progressive and accepting that they're shielding Islamists, essentially. Like the best example for me is the Goldsmiths University issue with Maryam Namazi. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Yeah, but take us through it.
Yeah. Well, she tried to make I know for sure that the secular group, I don't remember their specific name, it's their secular atheist group of Goldsmiths University, whatever that student group is there, invited her to come speak. And she's an ex-Muslim from Iran, I believe. And I could have that wrong, but I think she's Iranian. And she came to speak and talk about how her experience and how Islam restricts women a lot, and a lot of her causes right now. And the Muslim group, the Muslim Goldsmiths group, not only protested, which whatever, if you want to protest, that's fine. They came to the talk, which was just in a small classroom. It wasn't like a giant public, it wasn't giant university hall or anything. It was just a small, we're going to have our speaker in our little classroom and our group's going to go. They came to it and were horribly disruptive. They were standing up, turning off her projector at one point,
wow.
Shouting her down all the time, like just crap that's unacceptable. I mean, I don't care who's speaking. If they've been invited by a group, just let them talk. It's not, I mean, you can always, there was a question and answer after the session where they could have voiced concerns or whatever. But in my mind, that's regressive leftism. Or sorry, more appropriately, the thing that's actually regressive leftism is after this all happened, the feminist group of Goldsmiths defended the Islamic group, which is the ultimate regressive left thing to do, because even the leader of the Muslim group there has like horrible misogynist tweets on record, and just like the group is not. I doubt they're very kind to women. I can't speak for all of them, obviously, but
right.
The tweets I saw from the leader, I doubt they're too pro women's rights. And the idea that the feminist group, simply because of political correctness and because of the safe space policy, they say that the secular group should not even be allowed to have Maryam Namazi as a speaker there, and it's outrageous to me. So that's a good example, and really, I probably the only one that I know of that where the term has been really properly applied. But now the issue with regressive left is it's getting applied to everyone now. So now, and this is what I was talking about with the identity kind of politics or whatever you want to call it, just grouping by identities. No matter if I comment anything that slightly agrees with social justice causes, if I say, look, I think women are harassed way too much online, and maybe we ought to look, whatever it is. Right. Instantly, a bunch of people will jump on the Twitter feed. Oh, you're typical regressive left. Like, it's just this stupid calling card now. Like, you just throw it out there for someone you disagree with.
It's just another label.
And it's completely useless now. So, I mean, it has a technical definition that I think makes sense, but unfortunately, there are dummies on every side, and I think a lot of dummies, on the maybe Majid's side or whoever maybe are just using it for anyone they disagree with now, and it's kind of useless.
All right, what about feminazi?
Feminazi, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's Adolf Hitler was a feminist, so he was a feminazi. Is that what it is? No, it's I mean, that's one even. I think that's one even Rush Limbaugh uses, right? I think that's really crossed. That's a popular phrase, I guess. So people who are anti-social justice and anti-feminists just call feminists feminazis when they think they are. They're so feminist that they believe in restricting a ton of rights as the other side sees it and all that. I mean, I'm not too big in that discussion group, so I can't tell you too much about it, but I'm sure like the Amazing Atheist, that guy who has a YouTube channel, I think he uses feminazi a lot. There's probably others like Sargon of Akkad or whatever he is, and there are a lot of players in this whole thing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, how confusing is it? I mean, you throw these terms at people, and then like you don't know if it's a compliment or if it's an insult. I mean, it's like
generally
it would be amazing
is a
to
compliment,
think,
right?
Yeah, it'd be amazing to think feminazi would be a compliment. That'd be kind of funny. That would be cool, though. Yeah.
Well, you never know; they might take it up. I mean, who knows?
And exactly. And sometimes we forget, or I forget, that there are people like you're talking about who just don't know any of this. Like, oh, I'm just an atheist, and I tuned in because I don't believe in God, which is cool. I mean, there's going to be all different stages and kinds of atheists, but when you start paying attention to the movement, you really get into this stuff, you can't help it, but get into these sides, and I do my best not to pick a side. I really like to think of myself as kind of in the middle. I pick and choose when I think feminists go too far on stuff, or when I think, I definitely think there's a big harassment problem on the other side of that. I think that MRA types or just people, there's no good
you just jumped in front of us again. MRA, what is the MRA?
That's men's rights activist, and that's a mess. I mean, okay, so there's some people who have legitimate concerns that are, it's a response to feminists who, a lot of the impetus behind feminism and feminist causes is, look at these numbers. Women make 78 cents to the dollar. That's a disputed figure, but they'll say that. They make 78 cents to the dollar. There's they'll just, whatever the statistics are, there's only 10% women in STEM jobs or something, whatever it is, they'll say that's unfair. Something needs to be done about that. The men's rights side is on the other side of that. So they're looking at things like, well, okay, the suicide rate is something like 90% men or something like suicides in the US I think are some ridiculously high number, 90%. Prison rape is horrible for men. Obviously, that's a big problem in that, what I was going to say community, but it's not really in that
situation.
In that forced community. That's a big problem. They'll say, look, domestic abuse victims I heard someone say they're 54% male, which sounds insane to me, but I'll have to check that source. But stuff like that where they're saying, okay, if you get to say, because women are 10% of whatever it is, I don't know, astronauts or something, then therefore it's sexism, then we get to say because men are 97% of workplace accidents, then there's sexism there. And so there's a whole lot of that. There's a whole lot of, well, if you get to say that, then I get to say this. And I think I think those are interesting issues. I think a lot of the feminists will say, yeah, no, those are good points, but we're still feminists, and we still, and there's, of course, an ugly back and forth that loses all logic. There's just a yelling. It really gets vitriolic, and it's hard. The problem, and something I want to try to do on my show, but it's so difficult, is I would love to just get a debate between a reasonable MRA and a reasonable feminist. Reasonable feminazi, yeah. But I can't. I don't have a time machine to go back to the 40s.
It sounds like you're in your view, the MRA is something that some men may self-identify as, and it was presented to me as purely a pejorative term used by feminazis to describe men who are rapists.
It is exactly that. I know I've spoken to men who are probably MRAs but don't want to use the word because it is the insult that feminists use to describe, neckbeard types that are harassing women online. Like it is both an insult. It's like social justice warrior, I guess. It's both an insult and an actual term. It's probably, I would say, more an insult, maybe, like the if you looked at the meter, it's kind of a little bit over on the insult side, just because it's so used by feminists and by people on that side as an insult.
Well,
but there are people who identify as men's rights activists. They think that there's more sexism against men, or at least a significant amount against men, than there is against women. So
it's definitely so hard.
Right, yeah. Right. It's just one of the more current news stories, I guess. This is where it kind of tied it in for me, because I don't know anybody that calls themselves an MRA, or and I've heard that term as an insult. But I don't know if you guys remember this dum-dum that was going around trying to legalize rape.
Just recently.
Yeah, just recently. I thought it was an Onion article. I really, I saw it on Facebook. It seems like absolutely insane, and this guy was going to hold rallies to, legalize raping women.
Return of Kings.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell. But then I saw
that was just a Lord of the Rings book. I didn't know. Right? I was all excited about it.
Well, I saw that mentioned in MRA, and I was like, wait, there's really people out there that think this, and is this really tie into MRA? I mean, what kind of right is that? That sounds ridiculous.
It's really tough, because there are I know a few MRAs who would identify as that, and they would not side with that guy at all. So I mean. That seems so ridiculous to me. I didn't really look into it. That's kind of the stuff that, for better or for worse, I kind of ignore because it's just too stupid. But I sometimes people give me a hard time for that, because I don't say a lot of, in my opinion, I don't say a lot of obvious things on my show. Like I don't bring that guy up and say, look at this idiot, he's trying to whatever, because it's too obvious to me. But some people see that as not providing enough support for whoever it may be, for feminists or for people who might be on the other side of that. So it's a double-edged sword. But I didn't really pay too much attention to that guy. I saw people were saying that he lives in his parents' basement and stuff like that.
Which I guess with those kind of ideals, you probably
he's definitely not sharing a house with them.
Well, that's and it's also confusing, and that's one of the things that was great. Thank you for taking us through that. It's all of our keywords. I'm sure there's a lot more, but it's so confusing.
Did I pass the test? Am I?
Yeah.
Did I get the job?
Yeah. Well, it's so confusing. If you want to, if you're the person that's like, well, I don't want to be religious anymore. I side more with atheist ideals and values. I'm going to call myself an atheist, and then those that really get involved and interested, they start looking up podcasts such as yours, and it's also confusing. It's almost like one of those things where it kind of is really a deterrent for what, if you want to call it, the movement. I guess that's one of the things.
Well, I think everybody's in their own. Sorry to interrupt, but I think everybody's in their own phase. There's almost a firm arc that everyone goes through, where first they're freshly an atheist or freshly deconverted or whatever, and they get excited about Dawkins books and Harris books and all that, and they're really into apologetics, and for them that's totally legitimate. I would recommend Atheist Experience, something where it's more just atheists dealing with the arguments with religious, or if you're somebody who's maybe still unsure on some arguments. I mean, Matt Dillahunty's a really good person for just counter apologetics. Of course, there's tons of old debates, Hitchens debates and all that, and people kind of go through phases, and I think there's probably some podcasts that are geared more toward that. I personally, mine's not really. I mean, I hate to say it, I hate to alienate anyone but from listening, but mine's not real. If you're looking for counter apologetics, I do like to do it sometimes, but it's not really the focus of my show. It's but I do a lot of philosophy stuff too, like general stuff that might be of interest. But for the most part, I mean, it's kind of okay. My show is like, we're all atheists. Now what? Now what do we disagree on, or now what do we want to argue on? It's not a whole lot of, oh, I'm an atheist because of this. A little bit. Sometimes it's fun to have a Christian on and argue with them a little bit, but yeah. So there's a lot of different phases that atheists go through, and eventually, I think a lot of atheists start to get a little apathetic as time goes on, and some stay in that argumentative phase forever where they want to go deconvert Christians and argue with them and all that, and some get out of it right away. It's kind of interesting. I wish I could do like a study on that, like if you could question atheists kind of a different number of years from their deconversion, would you find a sort of an arc of like how outspoken are you, how active are you, like it would be interesting to see how that works.
Sounds like a good survey to do at the Reason Rally.
There you go.
Later this year.
You're listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee show. I'm going to have to force my foot in here for a station break. Been 40 minutes already. Haven't even plugged one thing. Want everybody to go to the website. It's mythicistmilwaukee.com and consider becoming a member and helping us support what we do. We got to keep the lights on around here, and we love bringing you the interesting guests that we do. Generally, today's an exception. Sorry about that. Yeah. But in general, we have great guests from around the secular world, and we do need your support. So go and look at the options for joining us as a member of Mythicist Milwaukee. We also have a Patreon page. That's patreon.com/mythicist. It'll get you right to us, and you can pledge as little or as much as you'd like per show, etc. So do consider supporting the cause, and that cause, of course, is bringing guests like today's legendary blabbermouth, Thomas Smith. He's got 7 or 8 or 20 podcasts, and he's talking about lighting up surveys and doing more. So let's get to that third one. What is it? The Shoe Shine Boy? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, that one is, I don't promote it a whole lot, so I don't worry about trying to plug it too much, but Comedy Shoe Shine is just a comedy thing. It's something I do with my brother that I decided we're just going to tell jokes, we're going to tell stories, we're going to, kind of observational humor and whatever. If people don't like it, they do not have to listen, but what we tend to get is there are like diehard fans who really like us, and then people who are just like, nah. So that's kind of that one. We just make jokes and it's fun. So check that out if you are looking for a laugh and not really atheism related. But so that's all we have to talk about that
now,
one.
Now that's the one I'm not as familiar with. Didn't it have a different name originally?
Yeah, it did. Okay. Yeah, it was F This Podcast, but we changed it. I don't really know why. I think the F This Movies guys. There's I think that's like a major podcast. We had ours. I don't know if we had it first, but we didn't take it from them. But I think they thought we did or something. But we just didn't know they existed, and so. But we eventually changed it. I can't remember if that was the reason.
Okay, I think I lost you in between that change. I think that's. I remember listening to you and your brother on a podcast.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So that's probably what it was. So I'll have to check out the new one.
There it is if you want it. I mean, it's a whole lot of fun for us. That's one I do where that's my enjoyable podcast. That's like my vacation podcast. I just go, we talk, I'm relaxed, I'm not worried about, atheistically speaking, I got to be worried about everything I say. I got to be worried if I represent this side correctly or that, or if I give the wrong, facts or something, I'll get email.
Right.
I get a lot.
If you have Eli on your show.
What's that?
I said if you have Eli on your show again.
Yeah.
And you have to go back and fact check.
If I have a guest people don't like, I will get email and comments for sure. But Shoe Shine is where it's like, if someone wants to correct us on something, I just don't care. I'm not interested.
Well, I think that's what you bring to all the podcasts is just that great sense of humor. I've heard you guys describe yourself as satirists. Is that the term we're using now? Yeah, Cogdis uses satirists, and
Yeah, I think that was our last episode. They described. I don't know if I would describe myself as that personally, but I know they do. Cogdis and God Awful Movies for sure, are satirists.
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, you guys bring the humor, and when you guys team up, it's really really funny. But the
I love those guys. You said, I think it was off the air, but you said you recently had Cogdis on, right?
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's those guys and Eli and Noah and Heath. I could have those guys from Scathing Atheist. I could have them on my show, and we could just record for 10 hours. It would never end if I don't make it in, because they're just so fun to talk to.
Yeah,
I really
they're sharp
enjoyed it.
guys. They're really on it. We had a good time, and it was a real departure for us here.
Yeah, we're gonna head up there and check out the new Glory Hole Studio. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're gonna drive down there and check it out, because we're in Milwaukee and they're in Chicago, so it's an hour and a half away.
Yeah, I'm in California, so that all sounds like some foreign land to me.
You just stay right where you are.
You may have
because
flown
there's nothing
over
but
it.
Ice and snow and
Milwaukee
crap
sounds
here.
like there's got to be a lot of Indians there, right? Are you guys?
You
in
know what?
danger of-
We've pretty much pushed them past the county borders, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're still
Okay.
out there.
Yeah.
Mainly
I don't know. I mean, I'm a little out of touch. Sorry if that's.
No, it's okay.
Is my information dated at all? I don't know.
Now you're gonna
Last
get
I
some
heard-
emails, and you're gonna have to do 5 shows to correct that. So.
I'll issue several apologies and corrections.
Yes, especially to the Native American population. Thank you.
I
so
also
much,
just
man.
watched The Revenant, so that could be part
Nice.
of.
Good.
Yeah,
Good. What'd you think of that? Are you a movie guy?
I love movies. It was fine.
Spoilers out there, everyone. Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, come on! If you haven't seen it by now, you can catch
Yeah.
up. Yeah, I'm an Iñárritu fan. I like him. I like his work. Good stuff. But so the God Awful Movies is not your podcast. I
No.
guess I misunderstood.
Oh no! I wish it were. Me and my brother have wanted to do like movie reviews, but that is a perfect concept for them, for Eli and Noah and Heath. That was a really good thing they thought of. I love that show.
I wonder how you watch bad movies constantly. To do that would be the hard part for me. Is
It-
to sit
yeah,
and see the
I-
crappy
Well, that's what
movies.
they were saying. Remember Cogdis? Remember they did that film.
Yeah, and they
where
just made them hate movies, right? They had to quit because they.
Oh
couldn't-
yeah, they had a podcast called "Everyone's a Critic." Yeah, I've talked about that.
and they couldn't hack it anymore. So.
Right.
California and Thomas Smith, and is that it? 3? Is it really just 3 podcasts, or is there even more?
Yeah, it's 3 current ones.
Well,
Yeah.
How
I've
many
had-
hours do you put in a week? I mean, just for these.
A lot.
This one, yeah. I'm sure.
It's but I mean, like you guys, I got a Patreon page set up, and people support it, so I'm happy
Plug
to
it.
do it.
Plug
And
it.
Yeah, we got $2.
We've got the good ones.
Yeah, it's unlike us because you have support. So that
We make
wow.
$3 a video.
well, but you compare me to Cogdis and Scathing, though. It's they're really doing well, and I'm really happy that people have been supportive, and it's incredible. Like that's the coolest thing about all this, meeting people like Cogdis and like everyone we mentioned, getting to interact with those people, and then also seeing how just generous listeners are. I mean, it's incredible. Listeners are really generous, and it's certainly an honor. The only other thing, if you're hurting for things to talk about, is I am writing a book now, so I could mention that.
Oh yeah, go tell us.
Well, because of my experience with Thomas and the Bible, I'm due to finish in October. So once I got the Patreon page set up for Thomas and the Bible a few years ago, that's when the output stayed steady. So
Right.
that's when the weekly output started, being more consistent. Well, what happened was I was already getting supported for Atheistically Speaking, and I just never felt like doing Thomas and the Bible because it's so agonizing to read the Bible, especially when nobody's paying you. So I said, hey, if people want to support this, if they want to continue, fine. If not, I will just abandon. So actually, the project almost died. I should have mentioned that. Like I almost stopped because it was time consuming, and I was like, I just want to put my energy into this other show where I get to do what I want. I don't have to. And I was in a really bad part of the Bible.
Between the covers?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it was bad. It was somewhere deep in Old Testament nonsense, probably Judges or some crap, just where the same thing happens over and over. But people came through and they supported it, so I said, all right, I will no longer ever miss a Wednesday, and so I put it out every Wednesday night. And because of that, I'm scheduled to be done early October, and I don't know why. I don't even know. I can't even account for where the idea came from, but just like a week or 2 ago, I thought, I have so much material from 6 years of doing this show. I've got so many thoughts. It's sort of an interesting hook, like an atheist read the Bible for 6 years. Here's what he found. And I'm sure it's been done. I mean, everything's been done, but I just thought, I'm going to do it. Screw it. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to set a word, goal for myself for every day. It's interesting. I haven't really written anything before. I'm an okay writer, I think, but I haven't written blogs or articles really in a long time. So I don't know. I just decided to do it. I'm really excited. So if people, I'm trying to schedule it to be out when I finish the podcast. So that'll be something that fans can maybe look forward to. I hope.
Do you have
I
a
hope
title?
to make it funny. I'm not 100% decided. I have a good. Let's suffice to say I have a good idea for a title, but I'll have to see if it's what I want to go with, depending on. Like if I start writing the book and it shapes up to be a lot different than I thought, then I don't. I reserve the right.
I like Thomas in the Bible.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
that's
Thomas
actually
in the book about the Bible.
Thomas in the Bible actually has a lifespan because when you're done reading the Bible, it's going to end. Is that right?
Exactly, and that's a hell of a thing because I'm going to start the next book. I don't think I've finished answering that question. I'm going to start the Qur'an or the Book of Mormon. I'm not sure which.
I think if you're going for comedy, the Book of Mormon, but if you're going for like what atheists actually need to know, it would be the Quran, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about the Quran, and I do know some ex-Muslims, and so it might be interesting to talk to them about that, and maybe go at it from that angle, because it's obviously not any part of my culture, or the Bible. It's one thing I can say, like, yeah, this is something I've been raised with, and I understand to a certain extent the Christian community that quote unquote reads this thing, even though they don't actually. But with the Quran, I don't really know much about how it's interpreted, what parts of it people take seriously. So that's going to be interesting. It's probably going to be what I'm going to go with. But the unfortunate thing is, do I create a new podcast for that? Like, I don't want to publish it in Thomas in the Bible. It doesn't make any sense. So that's going to be more annoying than I think you would think.
Yeah, but do you risk losing listeners because all of a sudden one went away?
Exactly.
It's weird. And
I think you can keep it. I mean, essentially the Quran is the sister of
just
the
change
Bible,
it to Thomas
so
in the Quran, or are you going to call it, Ahmed in the Quran?
I like Thomas.
Thomas
in the
is such a
Bible.
Bible name. It's such a Bible name. It goes
right. Thomas in the Bible on the Quran.
Ahmed in the Quran.
Yeah, that was more because it's my name. I don't know if you caught on to that. It wasn't so
You're gonna
much
have
that
to
I was
change your name
creating
to
a
Muhammad.
fictional Bible reader.
Joseph
As,
Smith started Mormonism, so maybe,
yeah. I think I may
Thomas
end up
Smith.
having to create a new podcast for it. I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, that'll be.
There's no end to it. You could have Dick and the Tao Te Chi. You could have Steve and the whatever the. Every religious text.
I thought you were a marketing guy.
Yeah.
So add up.
But Thomas in the Bible, it sounds like a Saturday morning religious show. Do you get people who mistakenly think it's going to be a pro-Bible bit and a Christian show?
It's weird that only one time I've gotten like a Facebook message on the page that was that. Like, it's weird. I haven't gotten that I know of. I think if any religious people listen to it, they figure out really quickly, like, oh, this is not what I want. But I don't get hate mail. Like, I haven't gotten hate mail, hate comments. Really, I think maybe I've gotten a few hate reviews, but who knows? It could be atheists who just don't like me.
Right.
I don't know. It's surprising. A shockingly small amount of that is what I'll say.
It's because you're a regressive left. That's the new term that I
and an
learned.
MRA.
Right, and then MRA and a feminazi.
And a feminazi, yeah.
Well,
I'm all those things.
Yeah, my question for you: do you ever partner up with conferences? Atheist secular conferences. Do you ever?
I haven't, but I would love to. Yeah,
Hey.
I just haven't. Yeah.
Hey, we're always holding conferences.
Yeah, we are.
This one in October is going to be huge, and from what
Really?
it sounds like, you're going to be done in October. So,
I would love to do that.
that'd be awesome. Yeah, we're going to have Allie Jackson from the Atheist Republic, Dan Barker from FFRF, and Rob, yours truly here, Rob Moore. And then also we're going to have the Bart Ehrman and Dr. Robert Price debate at that conference.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Because I could whip up the greatest talk on reading the Bible. I really could. I've thought about it a lot, but I've never known how to get started with it.
There
so
you go.
Maybe,
Wow.
maybe this is how it all happens, guys.
This is it.
This is what we're finding out, and it's been one of the great joys of doing what we're doing is just the networking and the meeting the people
Right.
out there and sharing ideas and realizing that there's just a gigantic community and a huge need that the modern age has really addressed. With
Well, but see, he's
in the podcast.
He's in California, though, so I mean,
So?
he doesn't
Yeah,
see
it is
what's
a lot
happening in
different out here.
Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You know, like in California's almost there. Like they're almost Japan.
Right. I know we have this image of everybody sitting around a bong at California,
Yeah.
getting up late, not really going to work.
There's another side to that, by the way, which is, yeah, they're not Christian really, but they're also not. Their religion. California's religion is acceptance. Like that's the religion of accepting everyone for whatever they are and like not criticizing anyone.
It's
So
true.
like,
Well, that's better.
The old "I'm okay, you're okay" from the
Yeah.
70s really live. It still lives
well,
in California.
it is, but the problem is atheists get a little screwed with that because when atheists say like, "Hey, why do we have to, have in God we trust on the money or something like that?" They're like, "Oh, look, come on now, like just
that
put
way.
up with it, not a big, So it's
who's it hurt?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, it's for us. That's what we didn't get like bogged down in any of these terms or anything. So we're more focused on creating the community. That's why we do the events. We have a debate series. We're doing all these. We're making a movie. Batman.
That's really cool.
Batman
I was
Jesus.
just listening to a Bart Ehrman debate on YouTube, and that is really exciting.
Yeah, sweet, man.
yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to
It's
have
the
you.
big one. The myth geeks around the world they've been pushing for this debate.
So, what is
for a
your
long
thought
time.
on mythicism? That is the topic of the debate.
I'm not an expert. I just it's not probably pretty worthless for me to give an opinion because I mean when you listen to Bart Ehrman, who just does he know every scrap of papyrus that made up the Bible. Literally, like he that one's B45. That one, it's like he knows all that crap, like the back of his hand. So I mean, I'm nowhere near that at all. I mean, I'm not a scholar at all. I just read it as someone who I've only read the Bible as someone who supposedly could be reachable by God's perfect book. Like if God left a perfect book for us to read and believe in him and all that, I'm just, John Q. Public thinking, I could pick up this book and get its message. And then we find, it's actually horrible and it doesn't work. So in terms of Jesus mythicism, I mean, I think there's a good reason that people like me who aren't historians shouldn't adopt fringe historian views. But I've also seen a talk by, David Fitzgerald and... I just
Friend
had
of
him
the
on my
show.
podcast. What's that?
Friend of the show.
Yeah, and I just had what's his name on my Richard Carrier. I just had him on for something else. They came out to Sacramento a while back, maybe a couple years, and I saw their talk on why Jesus wasn't real, and it's interesting. I mean, it's really compelling. So I mean, I'm all ears. Like I'm not really decided either way. But I
pick a side. Pick a side right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little worried about saying, "Oh, Jesus didn't exist." And
You're gonna get some emails.
If I get a scholar that says like, "Well, what about this and this and this?" I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just a guy. Like, I don't know. I don't actually know any of what."
Well, and that's why we're doing the because you want to talk about Bart Ehrman, then you look at Dr. Robert Price on the other half. Same thing. I mean, the guy can quote anything. I mean, he can
It's
talk
like an
about
encyclopedia. Listen to the guy
exactly.
talk.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember. So is Price a Christian or is he a
No.
mythicist?
He's an ex-Christian.
He's an ex-Christian. He's a mythicist. He doesn't particularly care about atheism.
Oh, that's right. Because Ehrman is still in the camp that Jesus exists.
Right. And Ehrman's even an atheist, or he calls himself agnostic. Yeah.
Yeah, none of these guys are particular believers. It's just
that's sure to be fascinating. Definitely. I think it's. What I got from Carrier and Fitzgerald when I listened to them was, this should at least be a position to consider. That should be something to look at. It should be something that you can write a paper on.
There's
And
clearly
be
no reason
seriously.
for it to be as marginalized as it is.
Yeah, totally.
And so when really the lack of evidence on the other side is what stuns when you start looking at it.
Right.
But
man, we'd love to have you at that. That'd be awesome.
100%. I'm there.
Yeah, we're down to the last minute and a half, and we've been talking to Thomas Smith, author and or not author, but the soon-to-be author, the auteur of several podcasts,
insanely popular podcast.
The Mythicist Milwaukee show. Here, we want to get a plug in for our own movie, Batman and Jesus, coming out sometime next year or early the year after. We're going to examine kind of what Zeitgeist did with some of the flaws taken out as far as introducing the mythicist position, or as I like to call it, the mythinary position. To the public in general.
We can cut that, right, Jason?
By
I always do.
Comparing the evolving mythology of Jesus Christ to that of a modern superhero.
Wow.
In this case, Batman. So look for Batman and Jesus coming soon, and we'll be showing the trailer for that at the Reason Rally in Washington, D.C. in June this year. Very excited for that.
Thomas, just from my experience, it's so hard to find you on podcasts, on iTunes because of your name. I listened to like 3 other people at one point early on when Jason informed me about it, but it was like, this can't be it. They're like talking about movies. I don't know what's going on. How can people find you? What's the best way?
Oh, if they want to find on Facebook or on iTunes, yeah, just search Atheist. Like, if you do that, then you're good, because Atheistically Speaking, I think, should be... Well, it used to be the only result for that. And if you want to find Thomas in the Bible, I mean, just search it.
5 seconds.
Thomas in the Bible is pretty good on there. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
See you, everybody.
No, it's okay.
We can keep going. It'll re-record.
That's-
We
yeah,
cut off at
the
an hour.
live.
So.
Yeah, that was a live, so Jason will update it. So
Oh.
we didn't want to cut you off. So find you on Facebook, Atheistically Speaking.
Yeah, you can. I mean, Google. It's really it'll work.
Yeah.
If you Google the show name, it's better than Googling Thomas Smith. That's for damn sure.
Is the Thomas in the Bible one way bigger than the other one still, or no?
No. Atheistically Speaking. What do you mean in terms of audience?
In terms of listeners, yeah.
Yeah, no. Atheistically Speaking is larger.
Okay.
Thomas in the Bible is close when you take into account all the people listening to like every episode. But in terms of when I put a new episode out, how many people listen to that new episode, Atheistically Speaking is probably 3 times bigger.
Okay, wow. Good deal.
Thomas, thank you again so much for coming on. And
thank you.
You know, for our little small podcast here, it's great to have.
Yeah, we love eating with the big dogs, man.
the big dogs here.
I'm much smaller than Cogdis and Scathing Atheist for sure, but I'm growing a little bit, so I'm happy.
Attaboy.
We're gonna keep you on the line here real quick. I'm gonna
okay.
cut off the feed, and I guess we'll close out the show, Rob.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Who we got next week, Sean?
Yeah, thanks. That's I probably should know that. There's been so many people lately.
We're booking guests and
someone.
We will have a show.
We will have a show.
We will have a show.
Next week
It won't be a doubleheader,
regular
but it was
scheduled time.
somebody big. I forgot.
Yeah,
but,
my computer restarted. While
that's
we
a
were
problem
doing
when I have to
this,
host
so I
instead of
can't-
just produce. But it's okay. We'll edit it in. Jason will edit it in later. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. And Thomas, we'll keep you on the line. We're just gonna hit a button here.
All right, take it easy, everybody.